insurance, it's more expensive for women than it is for men.
Mhm.
On average, or using data that you have from Pattern and its database, how much more expensive is it for women than men?
Yeah, it's a pretty stark difference. The premiums for women, when I say premium, it's the monthly cost, are about 51% more than they are the premiums for men. And this is coming from a very large data sample that we've had at Pattern. We've worked with thousands of physicians and kind of compiled those premiums. And this is true whether you're in a residency or you're an attending physician, just comparing men versus women, those rates are going to be about 51% higher for women. And I actually ran some numbers just for an example. A
Mhm.
common specialty we get is emergency medicine. And we're thinking of a resident, maybe age 30, healthy. So if everything was equal, state, health, school they went, the school they're currently at, if all of that were equal and the only difference was gender, the premiums on average for like a male would be around 160, maybe 170, and that compared to a female would be about 250, 260.
Phew.
So that's a
Wow.
pretty big difference there.
That is sticker shock, and I think that that helps definitely, like, for me, that puts in perspective some of the sticker shock that we get into
Mm,
in a little bit and talk about how women typically then respond to that. And so I really appreciate you getting those numbers for us and kind of giving a sense of how significant of a difference it can be. So
absolutely.
DI coverage is more expensive for female physicians.
Mm,
And now this leads me to my next point, which is that female physicians back out of the DI process over 40% more often than men do across the board, both at, as you mentioned, this was data pulled from all levels, resident, fellow, attending. And so, how much do you feel like in your expertise and your several years working on this and advising people, is this sticker shock? Like, what goes into that? Why are women backing out and not proceeding with their DI policy?
yeah. Unfortunately, we see this so often, whether it's the initial meeting, when we're on the call, a lot of women, especially compared to men, and it could be the premium. I mean, that could definitely be, the thing that's like, okay, I need to think. A lot of women say instead of, proceeding with the application, proceeding with the process, they want to think about it. They want to analyze. They want to get a whole bunch of quotes. They want to take their time. And taking your time could relate to losing discounts or forgetting to apply until later.
Right.
Women, and then during the process, even after the meeting, if they apply, a lot of times they still back out in the middle of the process. And when I say back out, that means they either just don't respond and their application just kind of cancels, or they, by not completing requirements, medical questions, especially when we ask women for for authorization forms for medical history. We get a lot of questions, some hesitancy, some fear sometimes. I'm just explaining, this is common for men and women. When they get that policy, a lot of women will just not sign it or not proceed, or they'll verbally tell us, we don't know if we want to proceed, or we want to wait, or we want to think. And that's very, very common. And statistically, it happens 40% more often with women than it does with men, and just kind
Yeah.
of getting out of the process and not completing it.
Yes, and I really appreciate you defining that too, because like at first, especially used in this context, like it could sound like, oh, backing out, quote unquote, it's like, that's a judgmental statement. It's not. Like we're using it in this context specifically as just we're trying to understand any roadblocks, any bottlenecks for getting quality DI coverage for female physicians. And so just the question is, if their male counterparts are just like proceeding ahead at each of these small hurdles, what is keeping women from doing the same? Because again, like very statistically significant difference between female and male physicians in this regard.